It's that time of the year where people have the opportunity to either upscale or downscale their medical aids. Now, medical scheme beneficiaries have until Friday, the 30th of November, to change their options by either swapping, buying or downscaling their schemes. Beneficiaries can only change their benefit options once a year. Joining me now in studio, Dr. Rajesh Patel. He's the Head of Benefits and Risks at the Board of Healthcare Funders. Dr. Patel, I guess it's a tough economic time. The big question is, where do people start? I mean, do you look to increase? Do you look to decrease? Do you look to change medical aid providers? Where do you start?
Good afternoon, and good afternoon to the viewers. I think that's a difficult decision. It all depends on the individuals that are on medical scheme. With the current legislative dispensation, it allows for the creation of unique benefits based on people's needs. And I think the best guide for people is to decide to notice when they run out of benefits, if they do. Is it early in the year? Is it in the latter part of the year? If you run out of benefits towards the end of the year, it means you're on a plan that's probably about right benefits for you. If you run out benefits early in the year, particularly consultation benefits, medicine benefits, that gives you a sense you're not on the right plan for your needs.
You're referring to medical aid schemes that offer those medical savings accounts. Do many of them do that? I know obviously Discovery do that, but not many of them do that.
No, not many of them do that. There are schemes that offer most of their benefits, risk benefits, and there are some schemes whose entire benefit design focuses on savings type of benefits.
Let's talk about brands. I mean, we've seen a fairly controversial week for insurers with the Momentum incident. What kind of psychology is involved to, I mean, your medical is such an important part of your life, just to have that peace of mind, to know that you're covered. How much does it take to say, you know what, I'm not happy with this insurer, move to another insurer?
I don't think that the legislation allows for it if you're changing employment, etc. However, if you're voluntarily changing from one scheme to another, then potentially there might be some underwriting that might come in. And therefore, like in the Momentum case, absolutely important to be totally honest about the information that you put on the application, because 1 month into the benefits, something comes up, they could deny your benefit on the basis that there was non-declaration.
I guess that's the important bit now. When you're thinking of, do I upscale, do I downscale, is read that fine print. Are these medical schemes doing enough to inform people what the fine print is?
I think that's the important thing, that the Health Market Inquiry that's been doing its investigation have pronounced on it, that there isn't enough information shared, and we need to do a lot more. And I'll acknowledge that we need to do a lot more. I think the medical schemes are trying a lot more as well, but the nature of medical schemes and benefits is just too complex. Even those participants who are trained in the health environment will have difficulty, because what you're trying to do is to bring in some commercial elements of insurance with health needs, etc., and trying to package benefits together. But I think the important thing to note is changing plans within a medical scheme is relatively easy, no underwriting. It's if you choose to move from one scheme to another scheme that you might encounter some problems. So within one plan to another plan in a scheme from year to year shouldn't be a problem at all. In fact, medical schemes encourage you to consider your benefit option, your benefit needs, and make those changes that you might need.
Let's talk about that issue raised of employment. If you're moving an employer, maybe at the end of the year, and moving across, what kind of complications are involved there?
There shouldn't be any complications, because you're not moving for a personal, voluntarily, put it that way. You're changing because the employment has changed, and you will then go on to a medical scheme your employer has chosen. It's not you who've chosen that option. So there shouldn't really be any underwriting or something like that that would potentially kick in. And I think obviously when you go to the new scheme, they would have their own medical scheme with their own range of plans, benefits, etc. It's important when you go there to speak to someone who's informed about this medical scheme and that benefits, that you can get onto the right plan based on your affordability and your needs.
Let's go back to that sort of your needs. If you're going to stay within one insurer, if your considerations taking it up or down, just take us through maybe a little bit more in depth as to what you say. Have you spent all your medical savings in the first half of the year? Maybe you need more cover. But for people who don't have that medical savings, let's say have a hospital plan.
It doesn't, yeah. Hospital plan is a little bit different, because obviously the hospital plan doesn't cover your day-to-day needs. I'm talking of general population, and incidentally the hospital cover is not really a good plan to be on.
Why not?
Hey? It covers you in the event of anything catastrophic that takes place, but it doesn't mean day-to-day needs aren't adequate. It means that day-to-day needs that you might need, if you have a boil, an abscess, those things are not covered, and yet those can be costly because you might need to be going to a specialist, have it drained, have anesthetist there, or some other antibiotics, etc. That can be costly, and not everyone has that kind of money in their pockets.
Well, that's the bottom line. I mean, we would all love to have the biggest cover, the most comprehensive cover. But the reality is, in the statement here, is that, consumer price in South Africa stands at 4.9. The medical companies are increasing by 5.4.
No, they actually, this going into the next year, over 10% is double digits.
Really?
Yes.
Increase in premiums?
I think many medical schemes have experienced negative claims in this past year. And as a consequence, this year, going into next year, most schemes are going to see quite high increases compared to what they have in the past. I think GEMS has shown a bit of a reversal, and their increases aren't that great. But most of the others,
when you're saying negative claims, like as in not
they've had very high claims during the year.
Yeah.
Obviously, if you have very high claims, then for the next year, you need to make sure you have minimum reserving, etc. So they do push up in contributions a bit. So either contributions go up or benefits shrink, and I think most medical schemes have opted to increase the contributions rather than shrink the benefits.
It's scary, and it's expensive.
It is, and I think this is why we need to look at the new reforms that are coming in that are going to ensure that a lot more outpatient benefits will be included. And if that does come in and you have good quality of care on an outpatient basis, that should reduce the need for hospitalization, etc. So I'm very encouraged about the reforms that are coming in. I'm hoping most medical schemes embrace those reforms earlier on rather than wait for the legislation to kick in.
Fascinating. Thank you. Thank you.
Very much.
Really appreciate it. So just chatting to Dr. Rajesh Patel. He's the head of benefits and risks at the Board of Healthcare. Don't forget, medical scheme beneficiaries have until Friday, the 30th of November, to change options, either swapping, changing up, changing down in your medical aid scheme. So just be aware, it's the only time of the year that you can go down, I guess, and you can go up. Is that right? Fantastic. Thanks very much, Dr. Rajesh Patel, chatting to us there.